out. Just so that y'all know. So today, what we are going to do, we are going to go back to school. So you may want to pull out your phone so you can make some notes. You may want to get a notepad and a piece of paper and a pencil or a pen, because we are going to learn today about the Louisiana Public Service Commission. We're going to learn about the 5 people who are in charge of our electricity system. They have a lot of decision-making authority, and they directly affect our lives and our pocketbooks. So today we are going to dive into what is the Public Service Commission, and then we're going to go into what are some of the issues that are at the forefront of the commission this election season and what the Alliance is advocating for. So I am going to go ahead and share my screen. And like I told my colleagues, I love to be interrupted. I love when questions are asked. I love clarifying moments. And so if there is a time where you're like, I don't know what's going on, I need to ask a question, please do interrupt me. Feel free. We are here to learn together. So let me go ahead and get this started. Let me ask before we go ahead and do the webinar, do my colleagues have anything to add to that? Are we ready to rock and roll?
Let's do it.
All right, cool. All right. Okay, so who runs our electricity system anyway? Hint, it is 5 men. Okay, so just a little bit about the Alliance. So the Alliance is a consumer advocate. We have you and your wallet in mind. Our work at the commission is largely taking all of this really dense information and making it relevant to you. We are always advocating for regular people's interest. And since the founding in 1985, the Alliance has generated over $4 billion in savings to Louisianians across the state. So that is our mission. So all throughout this presentation, keep that in mind. We're here to save money. So I'm going to turn it briefly to Logan. Logan is going to give us a state of the rate. She's going to give us a little bit of a frame for how our rate is set up and some of the things that we are currently paying for on our bill. Logan?
You got it. Hey, guys. So if I were in a room full of people, I would ask right off the top, who pays a rate? And I'd ask for your show of hands. And then I would ask who pays a bill. And my money is on hands going up when I say who pays a bill, because that's most of us, right? We pay all kinds of utility bills, water bills, gas bills, electricity bills, and those are public services. And we all pay for the full costs of the utility's ability to serve those things to us. And what that means is we pay for everything. And when I say everything, I mean we pay for the power plants. We pay for the fuel that goes into the power plants. We pay for wind and solar installations. We pay for the poles and the power lines and the people who put up the poles and the power lines. We pay for the attorneys and the people who run the corporations. And we also even pay the taxes. That's local taxes, state taxes, and federal taxes that the utilities have to pay. And so what that means is that we are the ones holding all of those costs. The utilities are able to pass those costs on to us, and for most of those things, add an additional profit margin on top. Sort of like, let's say you bought a house that somebody just built, and you pay not only for the house, but a profit margin on top, right? And so that means that every single thing that happens, whether it is a demand for new power or a storm that comes through and wipes out some parts of our system that have to be rebuilt, those costs are passed on to us. The utility owns that infrastructure, but we are the ones that are paying for it. Some of the other things that are currently on our bill, you might see something called MISO. MISO is part of the transmission system and energy market that we are all a part of. We pay to be a part of that, and we benefit as a result of having our power move back and forth on that transmission system. Some of the other things that we pay for are energy efficiency programs. The cool thing about those things on your bill is that for every dollar that is spent on energy efficiency, we are saving more than $1 back. Most of the energy efficiency programs that are under the Public Service Commission are saving us $2 and $3 for every dollar that you see on your bill. So that's great news. But again, Louisiana has this big stack of line items that we are all responsible for. And our regulators and our utilities like to point out that they are some of the lowest rates in the country. But how do we feel about how low our bills are? And that's why I ask about whether you pay a rate or a bill. We get calls all year long from people saying, boy, those bills are expensive. And that's because of so much energy use. So many of us have beautiful but leaky houses that need energy efficiency. So much of our energy is coming from, and Elena will get to this in just a second, from natural gas, which is a volatile commodity. And so we are paying for the risk of all of those things. So our energy rates may be low, but our bills are high. And because of our high rates of poverty, our energy burdens are even greater. So we need to better understand how the Public Service Commission can make decisions about how to fix all that. I'll hand it back to Elena.
That is exactly right. Let me stop there. And Betty Cussman, how does all that sound? Oh, you're on mute.
I'm so sorry.
You're fine.
Yeah, it sounds good. I don't know. I feel like we're paying for a lot of what you know, Entergy especially is doing. So yeah, I'd like to see where they're paying something.
Yeah, that sounds expensive to me. Let me get your reaction, Dr. Green. What do you think about that?
Wow. I feel the need for more transparency. I'm already learning a lot just from the various terms that you mentioned. And since we've got what was formerly going to be a constitutional convention, now disguised as a tax policy session coming in November, and threats about changing the constitutional protections of public utilities, I'm kind of wondering like what changes might be afoot and what we need to look out for.
Spoiler alert, we have an election for a public service commissioner this November. And so that is the impetus for this webinar, is that many of us, including me in District 2, will be electing our public service commissioner. And so all of these things that Logan has laid out are within the realm of responsibility of the commissioners. I want to just go to a question in the chat. Logan, if you don't mind just touching on one more time. Oh, there she goes. So the question was asked by Julie Schwam-Harris. She said, so our rates are low, but our bills are high. Why is that? So Logan says rates are low by our kilowatt per hour, but the bills are high because we use so much electricity. So the reason that is, you know, many of the homes in New Orleans are not very weatherized. Our appliances, some of them are really outdated. It's very hot here. We're using a lot more electricity than the average American household. And so because we're one of the top users of electricity, even though our rates are low, our bills are high. Let me ask, Julie, does that make sense? I know you're in the library right now, but if you just put a thumbs up. Awesome. Fabulous. Okay, so now we're gonna jump into it. Let's go back to our presentation here. So this is what Louisiana's power mix currently looks like. As Logan alluded to, it is largely natural gas. We have a lot of nuclear. Prior to, I think, 2017, 2015, maybe, we had a lot of coal, but we have moved a little bit more away from that. But look at our renewables. We are still so small. Such a sliver of our power mix comes from solar, and other types of renewables. So we're going to jump into a civics lesson. So the first part of our civics lesson is, what is the Public Service Commission? What is its job? Who are the people on it? So I want to give us a taste of the commission. And so, many of us have gone to a commission meeting once or twice. Some of us have never been, though. One of the real responsibilities of the Alliance is to be the voice of regular people at the commission. So I'm going to pull up a video, and I want you to take notice of who you see in the room at the commission.
The Public Service Commission staff served under 5 different commissions. You're going to be sorely missed, but we prayed and God sent us a great replacement.
I see a lot of suits.
And Eric Dupachan. Eric, stand up, please.
I see a lot of people
right,
who
there you go. And Eric is
probably represent
20 years of
industrial interests.
State of Louisiana.
Business folks here.
He's probably given a speeding ticket to 2 or 3 of you. Eric
sorry.
was the captain of the state police.
I didn't mean to stop sharing my screen. Sorry, y'all. So what that means is we have to get engaged, because if the people who are showing up every single meeting are people who are representing interests that are not ours, that is a problem. And so we are here to build some knowledge around this entity that is the Public Service Commission. We are here to learn about how we can get involved in ways that are effective. All right, so some of the responsibilities of the Public Service Commission. So our 5 commissioners are in charge of creating savings programs, like energy efficiency programs, for example. They are in charge of choosing what energy sources we use, whether we pursue cheaper and cleaner alternatives like solar energy. They are in charge of how much we are paying for storm costs and whether or not our grid is resilient enough to stand up to those storms. They're also deciding the general cost of our bill, like Logan laid out, all of the riders, all of the different factors into our bill. They are deciding and voting on all of those. Most importantly, it is the commissioner's job to be responsive to us, which is where there is a lot of room for growth. That's why we're here learning about the commission. Here are our current commissioners. So there are 5 commissioners. Right here we have 4 laid out. These are the ones that are not up for election this season. First is Eric Skermetta. Eric Skermetta is known for really being a voice of the utility companies. He opposes renewables and deregulation. He does support nuclear. Devontae Lewis is known as an advocate. He supports renewables, reducing energy burdens, and accountability for utility companies. Mike Francis has a background in oil and gas. He's pro-business and has a hands-off style. He has indicated interest in offshore wind. Foster Campbell is a man of the people. He supports renewables, energy efficiency. And one of the little known things about the Public Service Commission is that they actually regulate the cost of prison phone calls. And so, that is something that he really cares about. The folks who represent a coastal district are Eric Skermetta, Mike Francis, and then here, District 2, which is the district up for election, Craig Green. Craig Green has opted out of re-election this season. He is known as the swing vote on the commission. And so losing him really means losing a vote who is sometimes aligned with the interests of regular folks. Finding out that he was not going to run for re-election really opened up a big space on the commission for a different voice, which is why it's important for us to choose carefully who that voice is. So we will make that decision on November the 5th. Likely it will go to a runoff, or, well, it will possibly go to a runoff on December the 7th. I just want to give a quick look at the districts. So this is district by parish. So if you look here, the gray is what is District 2. And so here, we'll get in. Here it covers, coastal parishes of Lafourche, Terrebonne, the parishes that were hit by Francine that really care about resiliency, these coastal folks. Also where I'm at in East Baton Rouge Parish, where some of our folks on this call are, across the river, Point Capee, Iberville, West Feliciana. It really spans a broad scope of land. And in fact, this commissioner is going to represent nearly 1 million people. We are also just laying the groundwork, not just for this election, but in 2026, 2 more commissioners are going to be up for election. This will really change the makeup of the commission. So right now we are getting our ducks in a row, making sure people know what is going on, that we're making really important decisions, not only now, but in 2 years around the cost of our utilities and also the resiliency of our electricity grid. I just want to point out one quick thing and then we'll stop and take some questions. This is a map of the utility providers by district. So one thing I want to note is that if we look in District 2, you see some yellow areas. There's a giant yellow area right here in Lafayette. There's another area down here in Houma, and there's another area up here in the north in Point Capee. So these areas are run, basically the city owns the utility system. They are not, they don't get their electricity from like Entergy Louisiana, for example, or CLECO. They get their electricity from a municipally owned utility. And so some of the decisions that the Public Service Commission would make for folks like me, for example, living in East Baton Rouge, are slightly different. Because the municipalities have a specific jurisdiction over their utilities. Let me still say, the Public Service Commission still affects folks who live in these areas, largely because the Public Service Commission makes decisions about things like, how good is our transmission system? Like, how good can we move electricity across the grid? How much do we invest in our electricity system? They also, like I mentioned earlier, affect prison and decide prison phone rates. And so that's something that affects everybody across the state, even folks in municipalities. Let me just pause here. I want to see if my colleagues have anything to add about how municipally owned utilities and folks who live in those regions are impacted by the PSC. Any thoughts about that, y'all?
Yeah, I just want to hop in here real quick. And to also make some clarifications about the kind of 3 different kinds of utilities. As Elena pointed out, you've got these yellow little islands around the state that are municipally owned utilities. And that means the people who live there own those utilities. That's often water, gas, electric, and even in Lafayette, that includes telecommunications. You've also got, of course, your investor-owned utilities. Those utilities are owned by, as the name says, investors. That means people who buy and sell the value of the ownership of a company, mostly on the public market. Those are for-profit entities. And then you've got these cooperative utilities. And we have a lot of rural co-ops in the state where if you're a customer, you're also a member. It is also a nonprofit model, which means if the company makes more money than it needed to cover its costs, typically those dollars flow back to members. And so there are these 3 different shapes of kinds of utilities, and customers have different kinds of input into the decisions that are made at the corporate level. Is that helpful?
Yes, that is very helpful. Betty, I see your hand up. Go ahead and ask your question.
Yes, I was wondering 2 things. One, the 2 guys that are on there now, Scarmetta and the other one, are up for a re-election. I mean, are up, their seats are going to be up. Can they run again? Or is there a term limit sort of thing?
Neither of them can run again.
Oh. And the other question was, brain fart. Oh, the entire state can vote on them, correct? Not just the district that the public service commissioners are running in?
That's not correct, actually. The only folks who are voting, for example, on November the 5th for the District 2 commissioner are the folks who live in the district. It is true that all commissioners affect all districts, but you only vote for the commissioner in your district.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. And I see another hand up, Dr. Green.
Audio. Okay. Even for someone who knows as little about the PSC as I do, I mean, the things that I hear about just as someone who reads the news is stuff to do in Texas, you know, their grid collapsing and people are burning in the summer or freezing in the winter, and then looking at what's happening after Hurricane Helene, particularly North Carolina, and how are they going to come back from that, and what's necessary for resiliency, and sort of are we facing those kinds of situations with power grid failure and resiliency in Louisiana, and which sort of political perspectives or what are the buzzwords we should be listening to hear from candidates to suggest that they're thinking about those things?
Mm-hmm. The short answer is yes. We are all in the same boat here. No pun intended. But I'll let one of my colleagues take this.
Sure, I can jump in. I've been digging into the resiliency aspect for months now, and yes, you're entirely correct. Texas has been faced with some huge issues with the grid, but Louisiana was too. During the ice storms in Texas, you know, we had rolling blackouts in Louisiana, not on the same scale, but it is still an issue for us. And then talking about rebuilding from hurricanes has also been top of mind for a lot of the commissioners in terms of kind of resiliency and reliability. You know, you can walk around pretty much any part of Louisiana and see a telephone pole at 45-degree angle, right? Is that a reliability concern or is that a resiliency concern? Also talking about resiliency, you know, I think there's a lot more than just kind of upgrading poles and wires, right? We do need to make these poles stronger, make the wires stronger, but we also need to consider customer-sided options like energy efficiency, like microgrids, solar plus storage, things that are going to benefit customers year-round as opposed to just line the utility pockets. So that's kind of where our standpoint is. And this is something that has been top of mind at the commission. And one thing that's actually really important to this election, because Commissioner Green has been leading the resiliency and reliability efforts. And with him leaving, it's unclear who's going to pick that back up. So that's a big concern of mine. If the new commissioner is not interested in it, then somebody else in the commission has to, or else we're going to end up in a Texas situation.
Mm-hmm. Here. Justin, I'm going to throw it to you, and then we'll go to Thomas, and then we'll keep it rolling.
All right, yeah. So in the map, it says Terrebonne generates its own power, but since Ida, Terrebonne Parish has gotten most of its electricity from Entergy, and most of the power that's going, besides the Sleeka Morgan City plant that powers some of Terrebonne, most of it comes from, if you're on city power, which is the municipality power, you're getting actual transmission from Entergy. And that our parish president said that September 3rd, and that's been a huge issue. And there's like 867 poles and substations and stuff still damaged since Ida. And so for the past 3 years, we've been getting energy fed transmission down here. And actually, Logan and I had this conversation not too long ago that when the power goes out here for a storm, we can't get assessed until after New Orleans and surrounding areas are back up to 100%. And we've asked our parish president, and what he does is kicks the can down the road and blames things on raccoons and stuff like that. And Green really isn't, he doesn't like to answer questions either. So, so that's why we have these things.
That's right. Logan, could you speak to that?
Yeah. The point, it's actually similar to something that I said in the chat. Even if you are served by a cooperative utility or a municipal utility, who is making decisions and owns sometimes your generation, but also your distribution lines and feeds it directly to you and sends a bill, most of the transmission in our state is owned by Entergy. Some of it is owned by a company called Clico, which has, I think, a little tiny bit in this district. But the vast majority of our transmission system that moves power at high voltages around the state is owned and operated by Entergy. And so when Entergy's transmission system goes down, it makes it really hard for the local municipal utilities. It's effectively a monopoly. That's right. And as a matter of fact, they, because they were acting like a monopoly around their transmission planning and building and management, the U.S. Department of Justice actually required them to join. Remember, I talked about MISO, that energy market. They required them to join that so that better planning could be done by a third party. But there's still a lot more work to be done. And that's why, even if you pay a municipal utility bill or a co-op utility bill, the LPSC has a huge role to play in your resilience, your reliability, and your energy costs overall.
That's exactly right. All right, let's go to Thomas, and then we'll keep it rolling into our presentation.
Well, I think y'all might have answered some of my questions. For the question I really had was, are those munis and co-ops, are they purchasing power from Entergy, which obviously they are local production, or is it open market RFPs? So yeah. And you mentioned MISO, so that sort of leads me into the next point, just that the MISO North and MISO South connection is extremely small, causing capacity issues, and essentially making MISO South, which is majority Entergy's footprint, a island. Correct me if I'm wrong. So.
No, you're exactly right. I'm actually just going to skip to that slide right now because I think it's relevant to the conversation that we're having, which is, okay, well, we can think of MISO as like highways that connect cities. So we have, roads that connect towns. Well, MISO is like I-10, I-12, where things really flow through. And so I'm going to share my screen right now and show y'all the traffic jam that is MISO. Can y'all see my screen? Can somebody give me a yes if y'all can see it? Great, yes. Fabulous. Okay, so check this out. Oops, sorry. Ignore all the things happening right now. Let me go to the slide that we need. Okay. So here is the traffic jam that is MISO. So this is the network, this is the system rather that we are a part of. We all share electricity amongst this system. This is just in the United States. It also goes into Canada. But if you see here, there is really a problem between the North and the South. And it is this traffic jam right here. And that traffic jam is intentional. Entergy does not really, they want to be the sole provider. They don't want any other cooks in their kitchen. So they want to be the only one that provides to this area and MISO South. And so part of what we'll be deciding when we elect a commissioner is, are we going to be electing somebody who is going to advocate for fixing this traffic jam so that we can get cheaper electricity and cleaner electricity from MISO North. So yep, you are you're spot on. Let me see. Oh, I lost my faces. Yes, Entergy is trying. Go ahead. Oh. Sorry, folks. I'm on a little bit of a learning curve here. This is my first time using Canva. So I appreciate y'all's patience as I am navigating back and forth between my share screens. Okay, so just to give you an overview of what the district looks like, we'll go very kind of quickly through this. This is some demographic data of the district. Like I said, it is a very big district. Each commissioner represents a lot of people. This is how many people, including voters, non-voters, that District 2 commissioner will represent. The makeup of the district, it is a majority white district, and it is a majority Republican district. Okay, we're jumping into our science lesson now. So we've gotten into some of the specific issues that the Alliance has on the agenda this election season, one of them being that traffic jam between MISO North and MISO South. Another issue that is on our mind is this floating power plant. At the Alliance, we call it the power boat. So why might it be a bad idea to put a gas plant on a boat? In fact, it is probably the reason that you're thinking. There are a lot of reasons why this is a bad idea. One, it is ridiculously expensive. Two, it is located in an area that is extremely prone to hurricanes, see Francine. And three, it is going to only serve a very small geographic region that mostly is industrial users. So I'm going to pause here. I want my colleague Jessica to say just a little bit more about this mess of a proposal that Entergy has put forth that everyone, and I mean everyone, thinks is a bad idea.
Sure. Thanks, Elena. Yeah, as Elena mentioned, this plant is ridiculously expensive and in a very risky location. I want to go back to something Logan mentioned with the rates bills piece, is that we will be on the hook. So if there's any damages at that facility, we will pay to fix those and repair the plant. Because of where it's situated, it also includes a microgrid, which is pretty expensive, brings up the cost, but that microgrid is intended to only serve the industrial. This is a big industrial area, and that's what this plant is being built for, is for industrial customers. That said, all of the Entergy customers will bear the cost of the plant. So we have some big concerns. Testimony was due, 2 weeks ago. We filed testimony along with some other stakeholders. Nobody is in support of this facility. The industrial customers that it's intended to serve don't want to pay for it. The Public Service Commission does not want to recommend it to the commissioners. So I think we're in a really good spot there. But why this is a big election issue is because the record is being built right now with testimony, cross, rebuttal testimony. I'm not a lawyer, I'm sure you can tell by now. But that is all going to be built. The record's going to be built, the hearing's going to be had in December, and then the new commissioner is going to have to catch up on this and vote on it. So this is a big kind of education piece for us on this election. And stay tuned. We're hoping to kind of launch some more outreach information on this in the coming weeks.
Yes, that is exactly right. Just want to hit home on what Jessica said, which is that the new commissioner is going to have to jump into the seat and make a decision on something that is very important, and they need to have as much information, factual information, as they can about why this is a bad idea for our electricity system and our wallets. Okay, so I want to talk quickly about a solution or some solutions. Let's see. So community solar is one of the solutions that the Alliance sees. Community solar is basically a way for people to benefit from the cost savings that come from solar energy because it's cheaper to produce solar than natural gas, for example. Community solar is a way for people who are renters like me, people who can't otherwise get solar panels on their house, to benefit from that electricity. The way that it works is, here I am, I'm here in Baton Rouge, and I want to subscribe to a solar farm. So there's a solar farm down the road from me, and I subscribe just like a sort of Netflix subscription. Because it's cheaper to produce electricity from solar than it is natural gas, you get a percentage basically of that money back. So this is Entergy. So Entergy is buying cheaper electricity from this solar facility somewhere in the city. In New Orleans, there's a newly functional community solar program that we can look to as a model for what this could be like across the state. This is one of the few ways to save people money on their utility bills outside of lowering demand, just using less electricity and weatherizing your house. Again, the way that it works is, short answer is simply because it is cheaper to produce solar than it is for other types of energy. And so both consumers, residential folks, and Entergy and the facility itself are able to have their needs met and get a cut of that, where the consumer still saves on their utility bill. So this is one of the focuses of the Alliance this upcoming election season. Another solution that we see is energy efficiency. In January, the commission made a really good decision to take the programs to save us money on our electricity out of the hands of the utility company. So now there is a third party, an independent entity that is in charge of running these programs. At the last meeting in September, they made a vote to decide on this third party entity. And so this is very good. We now need a commissioner who is going to stand by that decision. Recognizing that it's probably not good to put Entergy in charge of saving people money on electricity. Okay, this is, let's just talk briefly about deregulation. So it not as to get too much into the weeds, Jessica, but would you just tell us how deregulation is tied to to community solar? Just a very high level overview of what this could mean.
Sure. So this is a little hard to visualize. So, but it is the elephant in the room, talking about kind of ending this monopoly. This could look anywhere from like Texas's model to somewhere in between, where industrial customers can choose where to buy their power, but residential customers can't. This is a big year-long conversation at the Public Service Commission, and something that is a huge election issue for the industrial customers. So it's something we're paying attention to, and happy to get into the weeds on this, but I want to be mindful of time. How this impacts community solar is, if industrial customers are allowed to buy and sell power from each other, from the open market, we think residential customers should have an opportunity to do the same, right? It's not fair that one customer can and one customer can't. I see in the chat, Texas is a mess disaster. You're not necessarily wrong. And I think what we have seen with deregulation is it can be very predatory for residential customers, particularly the most vulnerable population. So we want to make sure that there's guardrails there in place. This is also a big avenue to community solar, as Elena mentioned. If industrial customers can buy and sell from who they want, residential customers should be able to do the same. And one of those pathways that has the guardrails is community solar. There's multiple ways to get to community solar, but it's definitely possible to come out of this deregulation conversation. And that's something that is going to be kind of front and center for a lot of stakeholders and donors. But something that we want to also be mindful of. So happy to talk offline, but I want to keep this moving.
Appreciate you, Jessica. And yeah, just to hit it home, again, the Alliance is a consumer advocate, and any decision that is made, it is always about protecting regular folks. And so when it comes to deregulation, the Alliance's position is unstated, but whatever decision is made, that there be consumer protections, that there be policies in place to protect people from predatory practices, et cetera, that Jessica was laying out. All right, so we've heard a lot about the Public Service Commission, about the issues that are at hand this election season. What are we going to do about it? I am going to give you some homework. That's what we're going to do about it. Okay, so our homework is meet the candidates. So next week on Thursday, we are going to be having a candidate forum. It is going to be both in person at Schriever, at Fletcher Technical Community College. It is about an hour and a half from Baton Rouge and New Orleans. We'll also be doing a virtual option for this. It'll be an opportunity, it'll be an opportunity to meet each of the 3 candidates who are running for Public Service Commissioner. And so I'm just going to do a quick look at each of those candidates. Our first candidate is Nick Laborde. He's a newcomer to politics. He is a Democrat. He's largely allied on issues of affordability, resiliency. He is, I would say, the most he could be an ally for the alliance when it comes to issues of residential rates. Julie Quinn she's a former senator. She is the voice of, I'm sorry, this is so annoying, y'all. Sorry about that. Julie Quinn is really a voice of the utility camp. She has a relationship with politicians like Eric Skermetta. We did have the opportunity to meet with her, and she is engaged around the forum. She supports things like nuclear, for example. There are some areas that the alliance could be aligned on issues of protecting regular people. JP Kusan is he's a former representative. He is sort of the front and center contender here. He has the most money in his war chest. He has said he wants to be somebody that we could be in relationship with. He has been somewhat difficult to get a hold of, though, after that sort of initial conversation. And so looking forward to bringing these candidates together to go through some specifics on the issues that we talked about today, whether that's the power vote, whether that's community solar, whether that's how do we make decisions that make our grid more resilient. And so we've invited all the candidates and are looking forward to having them at the October 10th forum. So what I'll ask y'all to do right now is take a moment, if you haven't already, pull out your phone and take a photo of this QR code. That'll give you the link to register to attend. If you register there, we'll get you the Zoom link to join virtually. So everybody go register there or using the bit.ly/October 10th forum link. Let me pause just right here and see if anybody has any questions about the forum location, forum, what's going to be expected at the forum.
I do just want to make sure we are super clear. The Alliance is providing the candidate forum as an opportunity for voters to meet candidates and candidates to hear from voters. We will not be endorsing. We are not a 501c4 organization, and so that is not our position here. Our role is to make sure you know who is out there asking for your vote and that you understand the power that they have.
Yep, exactly. That's exactly right. Does anybody have any other questions? Let's see.
Yeah. Wait, where's my hand?
You can go ahead. Go ahead.
This is going to be on Zoom?
Yes, it will be streamed via Zoom.
Okay, so you'll send us the link?
Yes, I will send you the link. So long as you register. Did you register on the form yet?
No, on that QR thing?
I'll also look, what I'll do is I'll put the link in the chat. That might be easier for some folks to access. Let me see.
Thank you.
Here to just click the link, then take the picture.
Yeah.
Let me see. October 10th forum. Great. Awesome. Thanks, Emma. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
My colleague Emma is helping out. There we go. Perfect. Okay, so just to recap what we learned today before we part ways. So one, there's a lot at stake, okay? There is a lot of money on the line. We are on the line, quite frankly. Our just energy future is on the line. There are solutions. It is not all dire. There are ways that we can make this better, including by voting and getting to know the people who are trying to represent us. There are solutions like a good, strong energy efficiency program, community solar, coming up with a renewable portfolio standard for our state so that we can chart the way. Lastly, like I said, the way that we're going to do that is by being in relationship with the people who are making these decisions. If we are not in relationship with them, it is a lot harder to expect them to represent our interests. And so we need to show up and be there, whether it's at the Public Service Commission meetings, at forums, whether it's emailing them, being a voice so that they know that we are here and that we're watching the decisions that they make. Again, we will see y'all next week at the forum, either virtually or in person, hopefully in person. I'll ask that if you're able to do make an effort to come out, you'll be able to do a little bit of meet and greet as well with the candidates, which you may have a question on your mind that is not a question the Alliance has. And so it's a good opportunity to engage in some back and forth with them. I know that we are coming up on our time here, but I do just want to see if we have any lingering questions, thoughts. I see Kelly, you got your hand up. Go ahead. And
yeah, two questions on the Zoom. Will we be able to engage with the participants? Will it be set up like that or not?
That's a good question.
Something that I can say is we will have it all set up. There will obviously be lots of people in person. You will be able to ask a question in the chat, and we will probably have to read that aloud rather than being able to give you a mic, if that makes sense. Good. So if you join via Zoom, we can ask, and then if you put a question in the chat, we can ask it of them at the end.
Do we know of any other forums that I was recently at a forum in East Feliciana with Mr. Laborde and got a chance to visit with him and also ask some questions. And I do think that, you know, your assessment that he is willing to work with some of the same interests that appear to be the case for this group. Do you know of any other forums that we could have a face-to-face around? And what do the people say about the horse race?
I am not familiar with any other forums specifically for this race. There may be other opportunities where there are kind of open forums for lots of different elections happening kind of at the same time. I think Power Coalition may be holding something like that, although I don't please don't hold me to it. And I do know, and again, not taking a political position here. I do know that there are some of our allies who will be doing scorecards for some of the folks. And so if you follow the Sierra Club Delta chapter, I'm pretty sure they're doing one. I believe our friends with Housing Louisiana, because energy costs are a housing costs. They will also be doing, I believe, a scorecard. So look out for those if you follow them.
That's right.
Back to you, Elena, to wrap us up.
That sounds great. All right. So I will just say I am available. If you leave in this presentation webinar and you're like, I still have a lot of questions about what we talked about today, I would love to talk with you further. Please just email me back at the email that you got to this invitation, and I'd be happy to set up a time to talk with you further about either clarifying or about more in depth about some of the issues that we laid out here today. I just want to hit home the issue of deregulation is a hot topic this election season. Jessica is very knowledgeable and has a lot of information for folks who might want to dive a little bit deeper into that question. I want to thank everybody so much for joining us today. We'll be sending out the presentation so that you can access it and share it with other folks who might be interested. And again, we hope to see you on next Thursday in Schriever. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
You.
Bye.
See y'all. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks, y'all.